Protests and demonstrations continue today in Bloomington after a black man was allegedly racially attacked by several white men on the 4th of July at Lake Monroe. Videos show Vox Booker held against a tree, the men threatening to get a noose and lynch him. Quite a large crowd gathered here outside the city county building in downtown Indianapolis. No justice, no peace are some of the phrases that protesters are chanting after a man was killed by IMPD.
Back up! Back up!
We are now an hour past curfew, the countywide curfew. Protesters have been having a standoff here with police behind me. Now it appears that IMPD has agreed to walk with the protesters. Mark and Amanda, for about an hour, leaders discussed why it's so important to have students back at school. The vice president saying he wants to get them back in the classroom and back there this fall. The state health commissioner tonight, Dr. Christina Box, and her family, after she announced they have all tested positive for COVID-19. The governor and other state leaders will be getting tested later this afternoon. This event is really just illustrating the shocking number of Hoosiers who have been impacted by this 6-month shutdown. All of the people who are out of work right now. That goes for sound technicians, lighting technicians. Normally there would be a lot more people in this kitchen working elbow to elbow. Now they're having to socially distance, clearly wearing face masks. And the National Guard are sanitizing this place 6 times a day. What this machine is doing is collecting her blood here, separating the red cells from the plasma, which is the yellow golden fluid. And that is used to treat COVID-19 patients. Hundreds of interviews, dozens of search warrants, and hours of surveillance later. United States Attorney Josh Minkler announced today Mayor Dennis Tyler has been indicted. Booker and his attorney say they continue to cooperate with the FBI's investigation into this as a hate crime. I took what I found out through this investigation straight to the governor and the state health commissioner. You made reducing infant mortality one of your targeted issues as governor. What have you done and what resources have you dedicated to doing that? Raphael, a person, they also tell me, who re-enters the country after being deported could face up to 20 years in federal prison. It was a far drive. What was it that brought you out today? What are you fighting for? Who are you fighting for? They are hard at work here, so I will leave them alone. Good luck to you guys, and for now, I'll send things back to you.
COVID-19 has not only taken thousands of lives here in Indiana, but countless jobs and sources of income for many Hoosiers. Unemployed and without a paycheck, many people in the state are at risk of being evicted from their homes. WRTV Investigates Stephanie Wade joins us now to explain the federal protection in place that's supposed to stop evictions, but some say it's failing to do so. Stephanie.
Amanda, a new study finds up to 250,000 people are at risk of being evicted right now in Indiana. 150,000 evictions are expected to be filed by January. Now, despite the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention issuing a national moratorium on evictions a month ago to try to prevent this, WRTV Investigates found evictions are still happening as we speak. Many people questioning how.
So I guess this will be going to storage.
Toy Pollard.
And the hard thing about it is not knowing where, how much stuff that you need on a daily basis to survive.
And her children are packing up.
It is so sad for them. And they're the real victims.
They're facing eviction in the middle of a pandemic.
I think it's inhuman. They know what's going on right now. And unfortunately, people like me, we don't have a lot of resources or anybody we can turn to.
A single mom, domestic violence survivor, and working as a certified nursing assistant when COVID-19 hit. She stopped working to take care of her children.
There's so much stuff going on. It's unbelievable. It is unbelievable.
Patrick Vick is also at risk of being evicted.
The fact that we're all about to crash out of the economy and be homeless is mind-boggling to me.
He was working at a software company doing tech support.
This is where I lost the job on the 17th.
But was let go when businesses first shut down in March. The company tried to bring him back a few months later, but couldn't.
I lost the same job twice due to COVID. I have to smile or I'll cry. Yeah.
Leaving both tenants with no income
and no way to pay their rent. But then a glimmer of hope. Despite Governor Eric Holcomb's decision to not extend Indiana's eviction moratorium beginning August 14th, which was keeping them in their homes, the CDC imposed one of its own, nationwide. The federal moratorium, which took effect September 4th, aims to avoid mass evictions and contain the spread of the coronavirus. Tenants just have to print and sign a declaration form from the CDC's website. But not everyone qualifies for this blanket protection. You must have, quote, used best efforts to obtain all available government assistance for rent or housing, earn no more than $90,000 a year, are unable to pay rent due to substantial loss of income or hours of work, and are using best efforts to make partial payments.
I emailed them and I said, based on that declaration, I do believe I qualify.
Vic, seemingly meeting all of the criteria,
I have the documents right here.
he alerted his landlord, but they still moved to evict him.
Are evictions still being filed?
Yes. And there are a number of reasons.
Nationwide, there's been much confusion in how each state, each judge is handling this moratorium. Many evictions still moving forward despite the federal order. What we are now seeing popping up across the country and right here in Marion County are landlords filing for eviction under non-payment, losing because of the CDC order, but then refiling their case as what's called a holdover eviction. If during the now 7-month COVID period, someone's lease has also expired. Take this case in Wayne Township, where the tenant won protection and was granted to stay on September 22nd, but then 2 days later, the landlord refiled for a holdover eviction. If this continues to happen, experts say a significant amount of renters are still at risk of eviction.
Anything that can keep someone in a safe home and out of an unhoused situation, out of homelessness, is good, is important. Whether or not it's available to everyone is where it falls short.
Now, at the same time, while tenants are struggling, so are the landlords, property owner advocates say. Put in scary situations with mortgages, maintenance, property taxes, utilities to keep up of their own.
If property owner is unable to meet these financial obligations, the property becomes at risk of foreclosure. So that's been very problematic for our industry.
The president of the Indiana Apartment Association tells me the rate for overdue rent has been as high as 24%, when it typically run 1 to 2% before the pandemic. If landlords can't pay their bills, this order could jeopardize the very homes and renters it intends to save.
My question is, why me?
So what now?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Now, the Apartment Association feels there needs to be more rental assistance issued by the government because even at the end of this moratorium, all that rent is still owed. We tried.
Our Stephanie Wade first introduced us to the people facing the threat of eviction earlier this week. Now we hear from the property owners impacted as well.
With thousands of people behind on rent because of COVID, landlords and property managers are now also behind on their mortgages, putting the very homes that renters live in at risk of foreclosure.
What are the repercussions of all of this?
At the end of the day, we're going to get back into the '08 housing debacle. I mean, it was tough.
The owner of Remax Realty Services, which manages about 50 properties for homeowners, says we could soon find ourselves in a housing crisis.
They keep coming to us saying, you've got to get that rent collected. And, we're going back to them saying, because of the moratorium, our hands are tied.
Chris Scholhoff says since the CDC issued a national moratorium on evictions beginning September 4th, they're unable to do anything, while some tenants have just stopped paying rent.
To you, how do you see the CDC moratorium?
I think it's frustrating.
The landlord or homeowner out the cash they normally collect to pay for their mortgage.
What position is that putting landlords and property owners in?
That's the problem. Our hands are tied, so how's that rent going to be paid?
Scholhoff says he's compassionate with renters and works with them.
Where we have had, for example, a tenant call me and say, look, I'm in the janitorial arena taking care of churches, and unfortunately, the churches aren't having congregations, so therefore the churches are laying us off. In that case, I reached out actually to contacts within my sphere and found her opportunities.
So you're trying?
I'm trying to help, and she's very thankful.
But on the other hand,
we do have one tenant that has not lost their job, but took advantage of the system or has taken advantage of the system and stopped paying in February.
they're now taking that tenant to court next month.
Someone's got to pay.
Right.
Other landlords we've seen are trying to evict tenants not paying rent through what's called a holdover eviction.
There is a loophole, if you will, that's the holdover moratorium.
In the case where someone's lease has expired and the CDC moratorium no longer protects them.
Have you looked into that?
I have not.
As the federal protection expires come January, Schulhoff fears.
All of a sudden, we're going to have foreclosures out there, and that's what I'm concerned about.
Stephanie Wade, WRTV.
Tonight, a woman is thanking the doctors and nurses for saving her life. She was battling the coronavirus for months. But tonight, we are happy to report she won. RTV6's Stephanie Wade shares the remarkable story you will only see here on RTV6.
This day has been a long time coming. 47-year-old Arlonda Johnson Dickerson has been fighting for her life inside this hospital. But today, she gets to be reunited with her family once again. A send-off 2 months in the making. This is the moment Arlonda's family has been waiting for. The day she finally gets to go home. Cries of relief as she embraces her husband for the first time in nearly 2 months.
I was praying constantly and asking God to help me get through this.
And boy, did he answer her prayers. Admitted to Seton St. Vincent Hospital on March 31st, she spent 35 days on a ventilator.
It was scary realizing you had something that everyone didn't know anything about.
It's been interesting for me because I think in my medical career, this is the first time I say I don't know as much as I did.
Dr. Richard Cardillo says the COVID patients who need a ventilator develop an inflammatory condition in the lung. They don't have the oxygen or energy to breathe on their own.
It just takes a long time to heal. And, you know, our problem is there's very little that we can do to accelerate that process.
Arlonda says she doesn't remember much, but it was very difficult being away from her family.
We have an iPad that we take into the room, and they can do FaceTime with them. Whether they're intubated and can't talk or not, it's good to hear the family's voice.
If I wasn't able to talk to them, it would be it was already a scary situation. I think it would have been worse.
Nurse Angel Higginson, ecstatic she was able to make it off the ventilator, but sad for those who couldn't and had to say goodbye away from their loved ones.
It's hard. It's hard. I cry for the families. I cry with the families. It's hard.
Arlonda saying her final farewell and thanking the healthcare workers who saved her life.
I really appreciate everything you all have done for me.
Seeing people like Arlonda come out and walk out the door, that's what keeps me going, keeps me coming back.
Congratulations. Stephanie Wade, RTV6.
So great to see her pull through there. Thank you, Stephanie.